The people in the Nikola Tesla fan club somehow feel that he got wronged in his life.
The world is facing a dire energy crisis that threatens our way of life. It's hard to believe that in this age of technological advancements and innovation, we're still grappling with issues like gas shortages, blackouts, and energy rationing. But what if I told you that this was all part of a deliberate plan to keep us in the dark? For over a century, powerful individuals have suppressed and redacted information to maintain their control over their energy industry. And one man who knew this all too well was the legendary inventor Nikola Tesla. But his story isn't just about his groundbreaking inventions. It's also about how he was silenced and pushed into obscurity for daring to challenge the status quo. It's no secret that we're currently facing an energy crisis, one that has been created by the actions of governments, politicians, special interest groups, big oil, and energy companies driven by greed and profit. While these entities make billions off our reliance on fossil fuels, the general public suffers the consequences of their self-serving decisions. However, this crisis could have been avoided if alternative energy sources had been embraced 100 years ago. Now, you might be thinking, hey, we're already working on implementing solar power, wind turbines, and other non-fossil fuel alternatives, right? Well, that's true, but the sad reality is that renewables only make up a measly 3% of our energy output, and we still rely on natural gas and hydrocarbons to back up these sources. So is the push for solar and wind power nothing more than a scam? What if there was something else out there, a technology that could provide free non-fossil fuel energy? Surprisingly, there are various technologies that were developed over 100 years ago, including the discovery of etheric energy and the technology to harness it. But why haven't we heard of it before? The truth is, it's not in the interest of those who profit from our reliance on fossil fuels to make this information widely known. It's time to take a step back and examine the incredible potential of etheric energy. This natural form of energy can be harnessed from the air around us and converted into usable power. And it's not a new concept. In fact, wireless transmission of electricity through the atmosphere has been tested and proven effective, with light bulbs lighting up 25 miles away from the power source. Imagine the possibilities if we could power our homes and devices without unsightly power lines or cords. And while electric cars may seem like a modern invention, they actually had their beginnings in the 1800s, with fleets of electric vehicles plugged in and charging. Even President Woodrow Wilson owned and loved his electric car. And let's not forget about the wind turbine built in 1888 that powered a house successfully for 20 years. Or the fact that the first solar panels in the US were installed on a rooftop in New York all the way back in 1884. Imagine how far advanced renewable energy technologies would be today if they were given the chance to progress unfettered over the last century. The truth is that these sustainable energy sources were kept out of the spotlight, hidden away from us, almost as if they were redacted from history. Can you remember learning about solar panels in school? Probably not, as we were fed volumes of information on coal, gas, and oil instead. Why weren't we pushing harder to develop these renewable energy sources all along? Perhaps they just didn't fit into our capitalistic system, which benefits those in power. The answer lies in our history, as we travel back to 1859, when the first American oil well was drilled and John D. Rockefeller became one of the world's first oil barons, creating a monopoly and enormous wealth. This set the stage for our dependence on oil and suppression of alternative energy sources, along with wars and those in power controlling the narrative. There are more stories about coal and fossil fuels, but the big picture is clear. Now picture this, a world where renewable energy sources are celebrated and advanced technologies are embraced rather than suppressed. A world where we don't have to depend on fossil fuels and their negative impact on the environment. It's a world that could have been, if only we had given alternative energy ideas the attention and resources they deserved. Let's take a trip back in time and revisit some of the most innovative and underappreciated alternative energy concepts of over a century ago. Let's kick off this trip down memory lane by discussing Nikola Tesla, whose groundbreaking ideas and research could have revolutionized the modern world if they had been allowed to continue. But unfortunately, he was unjustly overshadowed by the likes of Thomas Edison. Tesla's interest in etheric energy began in the late 1800s, and he dreamt of harnessing the energy between the Earth and the upper atmosphere to produce electricity. He believed that this cosmic energy, derived from the sun and omnipresent in limitless quantities, could power the world's machinery. Tesla was a prolific inventor with hundreds of energy-related patents to his name, including the apparatus for utilization of radiant energy, which he patented in 1901. This device, which tapped into nature's invisible forces to generate electricity without the need for an external power supply, was a marvel of its time. By grounding the device to the Earth, it could power electrical appliances using the etheric energy it collected from thin air. Remarkably, Tesla's device operated using radiant energy from the sun, sounding strikingly similar to what we now know as a solar panel. Tesla's brilliance wasn't just limited to his apparatus for the utilization of radiant energy. In fact, his work on this invention is just the tip of the iceberg. While traditional solar panels can only harness energy when the sun is up, Tesla's device was different. It could tap into cosmic rays and keep producing power even after sunset. This unique feature set Tesla's invention apart from solar panels, which can only supplement our energy needs at best. But, as you can imagine, this posed a major threat to established energy companies who were already raking in profits, and without the necessary funds or backing, Tesla's groundbreaking invention was never developed further. This story is just one example of how monopolies and government suppression can stifle innovation and progress. It's a tale that dates back to the Gilded Age, where greed and profit ruled supreme. But what else can we learn from Tesla's other energy projects? Let's journey back in time to the late 1800s and early 1900s, to a time when Nikola Tesla was developing technology that could have changed the world as we know it. He dreamed of providing free power to the world, and he had plans to do it. His magnifying transmitter, an adaptation of his Tesla coil, had the ability to create enormous amounts of energy that didn't need wires to travel. He believed that he could tap into the Earth's electric force and atmospheric elements to create limitless power by using stationary waves, which are vibrations created by the Earth's electricity. Tesla had plans to use his magnifying transmitter for telecommunications purposes, but his true ambition was to provide the world with free power. He envisioned a world where a system of power-generating stations could be placed around the globe to distribute practically free wireless electricity anywhere in the world. His goal was so ambitious that he planned to light up the 1902 Paris Exposition by shooting energy through the Earth and atmosphere from his magnifying transmitter on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. The media couldn't resist reporting on Nikola Tesla's ambitious plan, and one newspaper article boldly proclaimed that his idea would put an end to all monopolies that rely on power. According to the article, Tesla's plan involved harnessing the Earth's natural currents of electricity, which would provide power for free, effectively making the cost of power, light, and heat practically nothing. Even over a century ago, Tesla was seen as a wizard who would break the shackles of greedy and corrupt corporations. Despite the passage of time, it seems like little has changed in the world of corporate greed and corruption. While Tesla's magnifying transmitter system and Tesla coil may sound like they generate energy on their own, they do need a power supply to get started. However, the power required is minimal compared to the energy that the device generates. In fact, during his experiments in Colorado, Tesla was able to convert 300 kilowatts of energy into an astonishing 12 million volts, producing lightning bolts that were over 60 feet tall. He even managed to illuminate light bulbs that were miles away, without any wires. It's hard to imagine the wonder and amazement that Tesla's experiments would have inspired in people back in the 1800s. When they saw it, they must have thought it was pure magic, and almost 150 years later, we're still not allowed to see it. It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel, doesn't it? But believe it or not, over 100 years ago, Nikola Tesla had already made strides towards this incredible feat. After successfully experimenting with his transmissions tower in Colorado, Tesla decided to take his ideas to the next level. He built a 185-foot working model of the tower on Long Island, New York, which he called the Wardenclyffe Tower. With funding from J.P. Morgan Chase, Tesla was able to make this tower a reality. However, the investment came with certain strings attached. Morgan was only interested in the tower's wireless telecommunications potential, not Tesla's ultimate goal of providing free energy to the world. So when Tesla finally revealed his true intentions to Morgan, things quickly turned sour. Morgan accused Tesla of breaching their contract as he had no interest in funding a non-profitable venture that would render traditional energy lines obsolete. It all came down to money, as it so often does. And in the end, Tesla ran out of funds and was unable to pay the rent for his lab, leading to the loss of his beloved tower. It's a shame that such a groundbreaking technology had to be suppressed due to financial interests. But the legacy of Tesla and his inventions continues to inspire and fascinate us even almost 150 years later. Tesla's work on wireless communication and free energy was groundbreaking, but it also made him a target for suppression and sabotage. After his Wardenclyffe Tower was torn down in 1917, the government and JP Morgan Chase seemed determined to erase all traces of his work from history. Not only did they order the destruction of the tower, but they also conducted an auction of Tesla's lab contents, which mysteriously disappeared without a trace. To further discredit him, smear campaigns were launched in newspapers, casting Tesla as a charlatan and incompetent. But despite these efforts, the FBI and CIA took a keen interest in his research, even commissioning a government physicist, John G. Trump, to collect all of Tesla's belongings and bring them to the Office of Alien Property. Trump's involvement in the collection of Tesla research documents is particularly noteworthy because of his familial connection to former US President Donald Trump. It's clear that Tesla's work posed a threat to those with a financial stake in traditional energy lines, which explains the intense efforts to suppress his research and discredit his legacy. Even today, his vision of a world powered by wireless energy remains a tantalizing possibility, and the question of what happened to his confiscated research documents continues to intrigue historians and conspiracy theorists alike. It was also later revealed that a young electrical engineer from MIT who had become Tesla's protege and had access to his research was actually working for the US Army and was likely placed to spy on Tesla. Finally, the hotel historian at the New Yorker hotel where Tesla died has said that the hotel staff is convinced that FBI agents were hiding out on the same floor as Tesla in the days leading up to his death. His life's work, along with all of the documents he had collected over the years, filled more than 80 cases, which were stacked neatly in his study. Well, thanks to Freedom of Information Act request, the FBI released their internal documents to the public, though many were heavily redacted. For what purpose would the FBI black out information about Tesla? What exactly were they trying to conceal? What have they been keeping secret for over 80 years? Unfortunately, many of the records have been lost over the years. Now let's take a break from the Tesla talk and shift our focus to another innovative mind, Thomas Henry Moray. Moray was a brilliant engineer with a PhD who was passionate about developing new technologies that could change the world. One of his most notable inventions was the Moray valve, a device that used radiant energy to power electrical items. Similar to Tesla's work, this radiant energy receiver consisted of an antenna placed high in the air and a rod driven into the ground, both connected to the device. When activated, the Moray valve was capable of harnessing energy from the atmosphere to power light bulbs and other electronics. It was a true testament to Moray's genius and his dedication to creating sustainable energy solutions. Moray conducted multiple demonstrations in the late 1920s, where he purposely set up his Moray valve device 26 miles away from the nearest power line and 100 miles from the nearest radio station. His device, which used a non-heated vacuum tube, was capable of generating electricity without any external power source and ran uninterrupted for a week. Despite the presence of witnesses who testified to the device's success, the Patent Office rejected his application, claiming that a cold vacuum tube could not work when tubes during that time had internal heaters. This decision raised suspicions of whether the Patent Office intentionally rejects or delays patents related to free energy alternatives. The answer is yes, and the existence of the Sensitive Application Warning System, SAWS, program proves it. This program, which started in 1994, was intended to be kept a secret but was revealed through a leaked internal memo. The program's purpose was to flag certain categories of inventions, preventing them from being granted a patent. The SAWS program was designed to bring attention to subject matters of special interest, and the public is unaware of which categories made it onto the list. Let's delve into the leaked memo to unravel the government's agenda on free energy suppression. It's shocking to see how far the government would go to silence inventions that could provide clean energy to millions of people. The leaked document reveals that free energy was one of the few categories on the SAWS list, indicating the government's determination to keep such inventions under wraps. It's unfortunate that inventors are being gagged with orders not to speak about their inventions, lest they face hefty fines or imprisonment. This means that groundbreaking technologies that could revolutionize the energy sector are being buried, while fossil fuels continue to dominate the market. It's a shame that despite the many attempts to promote sustainable energy, we're still far from achieving our goals. Those who believe that we can quickly transition to solar and wind power need to realize that we don't have the infrastructure to support such initiatives. Unless we find a way to break free from the shackles of suppression, we'll never know what kind of groundbreaking technologies we're missing out on. Right now, this conversation is shedding light on a harsh reality. We're not yet capable of fully powering our planet with renewable energy sources. Sure, we all love technology, but can wind and solar power really sustain the energy needs of 9 billion people? It's a question that deserves thoughtful consideration. While many of us support competition and innovation in the marketplace, it's important to remember that some resources are simply not yet viable at scale. It's true that wind and solar power have a lot of potential, but they're not without their limitations. For starters, solar panels don't work at night, and wind turbines only generate electricity when the wind is blowing. And then there's the issue of battery storage. While the largest battery farm in Escondido, California can store enough power for about 24,000 homes for 4 hours, it would take battery farms covering over 80% of the entire United States to power all 135 million households for a reasonable amount of time. That's a lot of land. It's frustrating to think that alternative energy sources could have been so advanced by now if they hadn't been suppressed and swept under the rug by the government and energy companies. Nonetheless, we have to face the reality that we're still heavily dependent on fossil fuels and nuclear power. We should continue to support clean and renewable energy, but we need to be realistic about the pace of progress and the limitations of current technology. Now, let us show you something that'll blow your mind. Remember that we said solar panels were first installed in the 1800s? That's right, but it wasn't until almost a century later that there was a real push for solar technology development, which means we lost out on about 100 years of advancement in this sector. But don't worry, we're catching up. There are some really exciting developments happening in the solar world. Have you heard of solar power stations in space? Yes, it's a real thing. According to Forbes, these power stations could supply the world with limitless energy. Imagine that, an endless energy source of power. And speaking of wireless power transmission, did you know that the concept was first developed by Nikola Tesla over a century ago? Unfortunately, it was halted because it threatened to replace profitable copper wires. But now, a startup has launched the world's first long-range wireless power transmission as an alternative to existing copper line technology. And it's not just solar and wireless power that have advanced. There's a new concept called AirGen, which was developed only a few years ago. It creates electrical currents from the water vapors present in the atmosphere. The inventor, Jun Yao, said, "We're literally making electricity out of thin air, and the AirGen generates clean energy 24/7. Furthermore, have you ever wondered what it would be like to power your home with wall paint? It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but according to recent reports, it could soon become a reality. Scientists are working on incorporating alternative energy technologies into everyday products, such as wall paint, to make energy usage more efficient and sustainable. It's exciting to think about the possibilities of these advancements, but it's also a reminder of how far we could have been if these ideas weren't silenced throughout history. Imagine if Tesla's wireless transmission system had been developed a century ago. We might be living in a world where energy is transmitted wirelessly and the internet might have come to exist much earlier. But it's not all gloom and doom. Better late than never, right? We're finally starting to see the emergence of innovative energy ideas, such as pulling energy from the air and solar panels in space that could revolutionize the way we power our world. It's an exciting time to be alive, and who knows what other breakthroughs might just be around the corner. The possibilities are endless, and it's thrilling to think about where this journey might take us.